Hey, Satanico here once again for God Loves Comics! Yeah! And I'm about to do an unboxing video, even though I've already cut into the boxes because I didn't like what I recorded earlier. I'm going to do it over again after about 16 minutes of recording, and so they are not technically in the box, but they are freshly unboxed. Because basically the only videos I make so far are unboxing videos and reading comics videos. So, the first box was rather small, and it has only 3 comics in it. It's supposed to be 4 comics, but they were missing one in their warehouse, even though they had it listed, and so they just sent me a refund for like $4.49. It was actually an issue of Akira, the Marvel reprints of Akira manga, which by Katsuhiro Otomo, and that Marvel colored. They were beautiful, 38 issues, kind of square bound, small, sort of prestige format. And I think the last 4 or 5 issues were pretty low print run. Anyway, these are a couple of modern comics, and I really purchased them. I just intended to purchase one cover that I really liked, but of course when you're talking about combined shipping, if you see something else there for for 99 cents or for $2.59 or whatever, and you can pick that up and combine the shipping for free, then it's certainly worth it. So I bought 3 comics. Of course, I said one was canceled, so the first one was this Batman right here, and the reason I bought this was almost solely because it has a George Pratt cover. I'm a big fan of George Pratt's work. He did an incredible painted graphic novel for Enemy Ace, which probably very few people have seen, but is absolutely beautiful. And of course, he's probably best known for doing Sandman. Also, he's done some other Batman stuff, and he's done some beautiful Batman covers as well. He did Batman, I think, what was it called? Was it The Cult? I think that was Jim Starlin. Man, I can't remember it at the moment, but he did not like the editorial control over that comic. He didn't have a great time on it. But anyway, he's also very well known for having worked on Sandman, which he was one of the sort of fine artists and painters that Neil Gaiman got to do a couple of issues, or at least one issue. George Pratt did one, Michael Zulli did one, John J. Muth did one, Kent Williams did one. All sort of in the same school of sort of painterly. All of them work in fine arts. So anyway, yeah, this is a George Pratt cover. Not one of his absolute phenomenal covers. There's a couple out there that if you look for him, along with Mike Mignola, he does some amazing covers too. But still a beautiful cover, and also it has Gray Morrow art. And not a lot of people know Gray Morrow, but and this is from 1989, so this is really a time when I wasn't collecting comics or buying comics, so it's new to me. It'll be interesting to look inside and see what the art looks like inside. And then next up is this X-Men Annual number 10, and again, this is 1986. Again, pretty much after I was collecting comics, I had kind of left the whole collecting medium, comics medium, pretty much, except for maybe Love and Rockets by the Hernandez brothers, maybe the greatest comic of all time, and Sandman, which just looked completely unique to me. But I purchased this because, again, it was very cheap, and it was Arthur Adams and Terry Austin, who are a great artist team. Ironically, I do have the Long Shot number 1 issue. That seemed to be one of the final comics I was purchasing before I kind of fell out entirely, probably because I like the art. And someone online said, oh, that's the first, when I just mentioned I got this from eBay, that it was the first X-Baby. So I was like, I don't know that, but obviously, you see Baby Storm, Baby Wolverine, and the dealer said it was the first Long Shot, which I was like, well, that seems like a deal, but someone online again said, no, Long Shot is in. The first Long Shot is Long Shot number 1. So, whatever. But really nice art by Art Adams. And sometimes it's hard to look at Art Adams' work and not, no one would blame him or hold him accountable for Image comics and the proliferation of Image style in the 90s, but like the smile and long shot and kind of the hairstyles and sort of all the sort of expressions and gritty sort of line work and everything was sort of things that get appropriated by some of the worst Image artists, Rob Liefeld, and taken to an extreme that was not good, lacking the composition and clarity of Art Adams' work, but it's not his fault, and still really nice work. And then here's the comic I purchased, I intended to buy all along, and so those were kind of just joined in with the combined shipping, but I bought this for the Paul Pope cover. It's a variant cover, but I didn't really care about that. I was buying it strictly because I love Paul Pope. And actually, listing on it says $11.99 Pope variant, so they were trying to really make a killing on these variants. But I paid $4.89 for it. I bought it almost strictly for the cover, but then, of course, it's also Miracle Man #2, so it's Neil Gaiman, Mark Buckingham, so, it's also a great story. Paul Pope, I would say, he's one of my favorite in terms of modern artists, post-90s, I would say, and along with Frank Quitely and Michael Allred. Those are artists that, if I see their work, I'm just, I genuinely love most of what they do. And Paul Pope, I've been following him since he was kind of an indie comics artist doing small stuff, doing oversized comics, but all black and white, like Buzz Buzz and THB, which a lot of people have never heard of. But, beautiful cover. You can see holding the skull, which was kind of a takeoff on the original cover, and also kind of a Hamlet sort of thing where, if anyone's familiar with the play in Hamlet or, the Shakespearean literature, where Hamlet actually holds the skull to be or not to be. I think it's Hamlet. I hope it is. Unless that'd be embarrassing if it's not, but whatever. So anyway, beautiful figure here, and then of course even the figures at the bottom are really beautifully drawn. And Pope is one of the few modern artists who really reminds me of, he has the visceral power of Jack Kirby. I'm not comparing him to Jack Kirby. I'm not saying he's better than Jack Kirby or anything like that. Of course, Kirby is a god. But I'm saying, he's one of the few modern artists who, when you see his work, you can see some of that, just raw power and eccentricity without it looking derivative. There have been other artists, Thomas Scioli, Jose Ladrón, who were incredibly derivative of Kirby, and it's understandable, and they did beautiful work, but Pope had Kirby influences. He also had a lot of European influences, like Blutch and Mobius, of course, and so many others, and also a lot of Japanese manga influences. And he actually worked on Japan for at least a year or maybe longer, cranking out manga, which I don't think we've ever seen. But so all of those influences combined to make someone totally original. So the second box was this big, flat rate priority mailbox. And it's filled with newspapers, but since it's flat rate, I was wondering why it was so heavy, but since it's flat rate, it doesn't matter. And this had, I think, 12 comics in it. So I am super excited about this lot. I got this lot for an absolute steal. And maybe as I go through it, I'll explain a little bit. But if you watched any of the prior videos, then you know that I've been kind of gobbling up Barry Windsor-Smith Conan for a little while. And it's not something I've usually done in the past, where I don't typically buy like duplicate copies of back issues or comics that cost very much or whatever. But for whatever reason, I kind of just fell in love with this, this line, and just looking for higher grade copies. And of course, as I said, I haven't said it yet. I said it in a previous video where I picked up a copy of Conan number 15, and it cost me about $43. So, because it was such a beautiful, beautiful graded copy. It was maybe 9.6, maybe 9.8. Have to look at it again, but it's a really high grade copy. It's beautiful. Looks like it just came off the rack, so it's totally worth it. But these are mostly very fine, and they're all the same title, and that is Conan again. And I don't even know if I have number 18. There are a couple of holes in my run from 1 to 24. I have 1, I have 24, but there are a couple of small holes that I was still looking for quality issues. But as you can see, beautiful, beautiful copy. And a really awesome thing is that all of these, they're not just bagged and boarded, they're all in Mylar. So really nice to get, you know, free Mylar bags for a comic like this. I mean, these are nice comics, but you know, generally you don't see these in Mylar. And there is Conan number 19, another exquisite copy. Of course, if I take it out of the bag, I might see something, but these are so nice and flat. The corners are beautiful. The spine is beautiful. So flat. Almost no spine ticks. A couple of very tiny ones. And really nicely wrapped also. You can see the Conan's not cut off. The 20 cents not cut off. Those are often cut off on these. So, and a beautiful issue and a duplicate. I have that issue already in a really nice grade, so I actually have a couple of them. And by the way, this copy is the first issue. 18 is Gil Kane cover. This is Barry Windsor-Smith cover. And this is a Barry Windsor-Smith cover, 21. Now, 21 I think is, and I love this, the winner of the comic book industry's own Academy Award for Best Comic Mag. And I'm not sure what award that was, honestly. I don't think the Eisners were being... I don't think the Eisners had been created at that point, but I'm not sure. I don't think so. But, and again, another exquisitely beautiful copy. Super flat. Really nicely wrapped. Really nicely centered. A little cut off at the bottom, I think. Yeah, maybe just a tiny bit. Yeah, the S, the H, whatever. But another really beautiful wrap. Beautiful copy. All of these were listed as... fine, very fine in the 7.5 to 8 range. So, and they certainly look it. They may actually be better than that. Really nice. And I did not have this one either. I think this is a reprint. It's, I believe that's an original Barry Windsor-Smith cover. And I've seen the black and white original art. It's beautiful. But then I think it reprints Conan number 1, and it has an original, or at least a new pinup by Barry Windsor-Smith. And this is another one that I don't think I had, and that is Conan number 22. Beautiful. Again, beautiful copies. I saw these online, and the thing about this is that they were, and this is a story, this whole, how getting this haul and how good of a deal I got on these, that I'll get into. Maybe I'll flip through one of the issues while I talk, so it's not just my typical video where it's completely static and I'm just running my mouth like I am now. But yeah, I didn't have this copy. I do believe there's a duplicate in here of 2 of these, and again, it's beautiful. And the deal, you know, what I was going to say is that I could tell that these copies were in really beautiful condition, but there were a grand total of 2 pictures for, I think, either 10 or 12 comics. I've already forgotten. I think they're 12. But there were 2 pictures, and the deal is that you had a picture of all of them where, the first row were stacked on top of the second row, but so you could only really see the corners of the ones in the back, but they all looked gorgeous. And then he had a separate picture of 2 issues just randomly chosen. He said one was a key issue and one was not, but he didn't seem to make that distinction, and those look beautiful as well. So I didn't even ask for additional pictures. I desperately wanted to get these and get the deal that I got on. That's number 22 as well. So see, I can keep one in my collection and sell one, and they're both beautiful, gorgeous, exquisite. I'm so happy with how these copies are just gorgeous. And again, I was saying this in the previous video, I mean, Conan, these are from early 1970s. These are either 1970 or 1972, depending on how late the issues were. I don't know when exactly Conan #1 came out, 1971, 1970, I'm not sure. But either way, as I was saying before, it's just unbelievable to me that we're talking comics that are 48, 46 years old now. They're closing in very close to 50 years old for Bronze Age comics. So what I was saying is that Bronze Age now is as old now for people who were collecting in the Bronze Age as Golden Age were at the time we were collecting, if that makes sense. In other words, comics from the Golden Age that were published certainly in the 1940s, if you were collecting comics in the 80s, those comics were only 40 years old, even though the Golden Age seemed like so long ago and so mysterious and so unattainable. And yet, now Bronze Age comics are the same age, as the Golden Age were then when you were buying these in the Bronze Age. Closing in on 50 years. Amazing. And so the point is, for a 46-year-old comic, these are stunning. These don't look like they've even been read, or if they were read, they were immediately bagged and boarded. Not in Mylar, because I don't even know if Mylar bags for comics existed back then. And, ooh, are you kidding me? If I have a duplicate of this, I won't show this yet, because it's pretty awesome. I won't show this one yet either, because it's pretty awesome. The 2 key issues. If you know Conan, you already know. Gorgeous, stunning, another Gil Kane beauty. Look at that cover. And I believe Gil Kane did the interior art for this as well. And I think maybe inked by Ralph Reese, but I can't remember exactly. I wish I had pulled all this information up. Sorry that I didn't. But I'm going to show all of this full run, this 1 through 24, and talk about them a little bit more extensively, or maybe do a kind of Barry Windsor-Smith spotlight as well. But look at that. Again, gorgeous. Got, maybe just a tiny little bit of a denting there, tiny little nick there, but especially because you've got this black sort of framing. That's always, like you have on issue, is it 15 or 14? There with the second Elric, also has that black framing, and so those always show up spine ticks a lot more than any other, certainly white. This one is not perfectly wrapped, which is fine by me, but you can see the white, you can see the staples for a change. But again, another beautiful issue. I am thrilled with these. And, well, I was just asking this question. Duh, it's Conan 15. And that is, again, another beautiful copy. I have this one as well already. I think I have 2 copies of it. I just sold one for not very much, and then I kept a really nice copy that's easily a near mint. It's maybe a 9.0, 9.2, and then this one looks like about an 8, but I'm just guesstimating very quickly, a very rough guesstimate. But again, you can see nicely wrapped. You can see the staples here, but you don't even see any white. And again, black and very few spine ticks. Beautiful copy. And that is the second Elric of Melnibone by Michael Moorcock. And there is number 16, Night of the Frost Giants. Great cover, beautiful issue. I think the short story is a little bit truncated. It's a relatively short Barry Windsor-Smith story. Throughout this, you saw some Gil Kane covers, a Gil Kane fill-in, a very short story, a Barry Windsor, a reprint of number 1. I think you could see a lot of evidence of Barry Windsor-Smith being a very young artist struggling to make the deadlines, the crushing deadlines, and also maintain the quality of art, which he was still learning. Oh, okay. Let's see. And this is number 17. Again, that's Gil Kane and Frank Brunner. Frank Brunner, really best known probably for his work on Doctor Strange, which was sometimes just stunning. Really beautiful stuff. Especially, he was pretty extremely popular artist in the 70s and Marvel 70s and maybe the late 80s. He's one of the artists that went over to First Comics, along with people like Howard Chaykin and Mike Grell. But I guess he inked this for Gil Kane. Gil Kane, obviously, you can see all the telltale signs of Gil Kane with the musculature, and or as George Takei would say, musculature. But beautiful, beautiful cover. And there's number 18. Again, that's not Barry Windsor-Smith. It's Gil Kane as well. Not one of my favorite covers in the run, even though I love the female figure here. Not a big fan of this inky black amorphous sort of thing. But again, another beautiful copy. And now, the piece de resistance is number 24. I just sold a beat-up copy that I've had in my collection for ages. That was really pretty beat up. And because I have a near mint copy, but now I get a duplicate. And this is beautiful again. And this was an absolute, again, I cannot emphasize, these comics were steal. I'll get into it in just a moment. But that's issue 24. It is the first full appearance of Red Sonja, and the first Red Sonja cover. It's the last Barry Windsor-Smith issue. You see his signature right there, Barry Smith. This was pre-Windsor, and it was probably the pinnacle of his Marvel work, and the pinnacle of, it was unfortunately the very last issue. I mean, he never came back to do Conan. He came back to Marvel later. He did some crazy things that you would never expect. Machine Man. He did, obviously he did Life, Death for X-Men. And he did a couple of Iron Men with his really unique coloring, which was really beautiful. But he didn't come back to Conan, unfortunately, which was, a shame, because some of his most amazing work and really where his fame was developed was Conan and this run. But Barry said some pretty cool things in his Comics Journal interview, which I posted on the Facebook page, where he was just saying that his kind of embarrassment and shame with the comics industry in the 90s at the time he was being interviewed, and how Rob Liefeld just was kind of not the pinnacle, but kind of the bottom of the barrel in terms of mainstream artists hacking out really bad work. Now, a lot of people actually did not like that quote because they actually liked Rob Liefeld or Image Comics at the time. And the second piece de resistance is number 23, and I cannot say how thrilled I am to have this again. Another Gil Kane cover. Really nice cover. but no comparison to this cover, the Barry Windsor-Smith. I love some of the other Gil Kane covers that we've already seen. Like that one's a great cover, obviously. But this is all Barry Windsor-Smith art, and it is the very first appearance of Red Sonja. It is an issue I have never owned, and I got outbid for it once or twice, and then I've seen some really beat up copies or some, so-so that were selling, too high, or there was a lot of ferocious bidding on them. And here is a beautiful copy. A beautiful copy. Again, there's a little misprint there, which almost makes it looks like, I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but it's where it says Conan the Barbarian. If you can see, it's like Barbarian, because the R, they've misprinted the R. So yeah, it's Barbarian. It's the only one that's like that, because this one is correct. But yeah, anyway, thrilled again to get that one. So let's take a look at one of these issues while I fill you in really quickly on, got number 22, so let's take a look at it. And again, all of these are in Mylar with really heavy backing board. Really nice. There is the copy out of the bag of 22. Gorgeous. It feels so nice. I mean, it doesn't have any kind of, maybe a little bit. No, I could see it in the light, but then I don't feel it. Thought there was a little bit of a little kind of indent there, but nope. As you can see, the back cover, nice and white. That's a little printing error there that creates that line, but that is not a crease. Beautiful. These copies do not look like they've been read. And this reminds me, this is actually one of the pages that they've shown as kind of a promo page that's being, I think this was recolored, for the Dark Horse collection when Dark Horse had the comic, but now Marvel is releasing an omnibus of all of the Barry Windsor-Smith, probably the Gil Kane fillers are in there as well, and Roy Thomas. Conan, including some of the Savage Sword stuff with the red nails, classic red nails, and so a big omnibus is planned for 2019, which is when Marvel gets back the rights to Conan. And this is the first page, and there's a whole debate on the Facebook page as to whether the new coloring is good compared to the newsprint, and I would say it's not. I mean, there's Thomas Scioli wrote something for Comics Alliance specifying why, so much of the mystery and the beauty is drained out once it's been, in some cases, recolored. There've been changes, the inexplicable changes to it, but also, even the paper quality and everything, it just lacks something. It looks too much like something that you would see on Comixology, which is not as good. But you can see the page quality is beautiful, and Barry Windsor-Smith. Now it looks a little bit like Barry there. Now it looks like him again, but now his hair's brown instead of blonde. Conan, of course, also looks like Barry Windsor-Smith. He probably drew himself into every comic. So anyway, let's get quickly to, I'll try to be as succinct as possible on this deal. Okay, so I got these comics for, they were listed as $75. And that was the initial auction price. So, and there were no bids on it. And it was a day and 9 hours away from being from the auction ending, and there were no bids, but by the time it rose to the top of the search list, you know, somebody would have absolutely bid $75 on this, because 23 is a $75 comic easily. In this condition, I've already seen it sell for easily for I've seen it sell for 75. I've seen it sell for 80. So this alone is a $75 comic, and 24 is also easily anywhere from $60 to $75. I saw 2 copies. I've told some people this already, and they couldn't believe it, but I saw them. They were from the same dealer, and they duplicate copies, and one sold for $189 on eBay, and the other sold for $209. Absolute frenzy, but they were exquisite. They were probably, people were gambling that these were 9.8s, or at the very least 9.6, and based on the pictures, they really look like it. But that was an anomaly. This is definitely not a 9.8, but is it a $70, $80 comic? Oh yeah, it absolutely is. Especially, as I've said, with Marvel getting the rights back, I think that these comics will go up. But so the listing was for $75. I saw this at 3 a.m. And I kept looking at it, and I sent the guy a message, and I said, would you take $60 for this? You could put it as a buy it now, because it was like $15 shipping, and I said, you know, with the shipping, it'll come out to about $75 anyway. Would you be willing to do that? And then I just kind of sat on pins and needles, wondering, you know, waiting for him to respond, hoping they responded before I went to sleep. And I kind of sat on pins and needles. An hour later, at like 5:30 in the morning, and this guy is also on the East Coast like I am, so he must have woken up early. He sent me a message back and said, sure, $60 sounds fine, and he will put the buy it now on eBay. And so I kept refreshing the page, and sure enough, boom. He had to, of course, list the auction lower, significantly lower than the buy it now, whatever it is, 20% or something. So he put it $40 for the auction price, the initial auction price, and $60 as the buy it now. I immediately clicked that 60 as fast as I possibly could. There's a pinup, special Hyborian page pinup from Barry Windsor-Smith. Barry the Barbarian Smith here, it says. So, an incredible deal, because most of these other comics are easily $25, $30 comics. And then you've got 2 major keys, one of which I didn't have, one of which I have a duplicate of now. And with the first Red Sonja, the first full Red Sonja, and the first Red Sonja cover. And this guy he never specified that there were any keys in there. The issue 23, this one here, was in the back of the rows, and so all you could see was 23. When I saw that was in there, I was like, oh my God, what a deal. You know, I already know that 24 is in there, plus all of these other issues. Incredible. So, and then I was really almost regretting even saying this $60. I thought he would come back and say, no, that's too low. And I was like, how about $100? And would have had no hesitation in paying $100 or more for these. I probably would have went up to $130, $140. This is about $300 worth of comics conservatively, very conservatively, because and that's with their current value. I do think that these will go up even more. I think there will be a spike. I don't know what the omnibus will do to them. I don't know if people will say, if people will just buy the omnibus and not be interested in the back issues, or if conversely the omnibus will spark a little bit more interest. But I think in general what will spark interest is that Marvel's planning, they're definitely planning a new Conan title. I saw somewhere where they said 3 Conan titles. Red Sonja will definitely be reappearing and become kind of a major character at some point, I would think. I don't know. Maybe they already have a Red Sonja comic. I don't even know if Red Sonja is Robert E. Howard creation, but I assume probably she is. But I saw the grades on these. I mean, I could see he had them listed as mostly 7.5, 8, and he said they were he's being very conservative. And also, what was really cool about this, I was online looking at like 3 a.m. Kind of a tip, and it's not anything profound. People that do, probably know a lot more than I do have been doing this probably for years, but it just occurred to me, I'm up all night, and so I just look at auctions that are ending in the middle of the night for no reason, because somebody just made a mistake and listed something at 3 a.m. not thinking, oh, it's going to end, the auction's going to end at 3 a.m. If you look at the buy it nows or just the generals, you'll see a lot of my comic shop stuff. But if you look at the auction stuff, you'll see all kinds of random stuff. A lot of it's modern comics, but and generally I don't see a lot of stuff is actually from Australia, which is perfectly fine, except for the shipping is prohibitive in the sense that why would you want to get a $9 comic and pay $27 shipping from Australia? So this is when I saw this, and unfortunately this auction was not one that was ending. I looked around, I just typed in Bronze Age comics and saw what was available, Silver Age. But if you just type in comics in general, you'll see all these modern comics. They're ending, in 30 seconds and in 1 minute or whatever, which they don't have any bids on them. If you wanted to get that comic, you could get it really cheaply. But in this case, I actually did a search. Just on a random. I wasn't thinking of Conan. I just said, I'll just type in Barry Windsor-Smith comics. And I saw this. And it was amazing. And the great thing is this guy is not a comics dealer. He obviously knew what he was doing because he knew that these were in Mylar bags. He knew grades, numerical grades. It wasn't just strictly, oh, these are fine or very fine. He had 7.5, 8.5. So he knew numerical grades, but then he just lumped all of these comics in together. Nobody would sell this issue or 24 in a lot, unless it was like, a high price, or it was just a big lot, a huge lot, and these were considered minor comics and a much, much bigger lot. But in a lot for Conan, Barry Windsor-Smith Conan, early Bronze Age Conan, these are always singled out. You'll just sell these separately as key issues. So the fact that these were just lumped in there, that number 23 was not even featured. The only issues that were featured were 24, and maybe 22 or 12 or something like that. And I looked at his other items to see if he was selling any other comics, and he wasn't. He was just selling crystal vases and things. So as an antique store owner, he had a really good, 100% rating and had a lot of sales. So, but he's not a comics dealer, so he didn't really care that much. So he's not nitpicking over key issues, so it's the perfect deal. So, and as I said, I paid $43 for a copy of Conan 15 in high grade. Here it is. I've got 23, 24, 6, I said 15, I think it's maybe 14 that I paid. The very first Elric, but also just a beautiful copy, because I have 15 here, right? Yes. Okay, so it's 14. But, yeah. This alone is a $20, $25 comic and a really nice grade, if you get the right buyers. Some people only want to pay $10, $15 for it. And same for this. $15, $20. But, so if I paid $43 for issue number 14, I paid $60 for all of these, plus shipping, which was $13 and something. So there you go. So that is my huge score. For me, I was really happy with it. I'm really happy with the grade of these comics. And the Mylar. The Mylar alone is another huge bonus. And taking this one out of the bag, this number 22, it looks absolutely gorgeous, feels gorgeous, doesn't have any you know, sort of, kind of grotty sort of texture to it, or something that sometimes you notice when you take comics out of the bag and they're old. But these comics look almost like the day they were published. I don't think they're near mint, but some of them are pretty close. Look like we have a lot of 8.5s here. So that's my latest comics unboxing for God Loves Comics, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you love Conan, and maybe Dr. Von Chillo will check in on this one, but I doubt it because I don't think he knows this channel exists. But either way, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back again sometime soon. In fact, I just bought some more comics. Unfortunately, shouldn't have paid too much, but so maybe didn't get as good a deal on those. But so I'll be back soon with another unboxing. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks very much. And please leave a comment if you watched the video, because I like to read the comments. That's it. Thanks. Goodbye.